All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Ashley, and I have the pleasure of interviewing my one of my best friends, Maggie Paredes, the author, Maggie Paredes, and she is coming out with her debut novel on November 30th. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my book is called On a Rooftop in Beijing. And yeah, I'm super excited.
That's awesome. I'm glad you got the book in front of you. I didn't know you got the copies yet.
Yeah, they sent me one of each so I could see like what it's going to look like. So this is the paperback and then this is the hardback. Yeah, so they
How
should be sending
exciting.
me 25 copies, but we'll see.
That's awesome. I did not know. When did
Yeah.
they send you those? Like a while ago or recently?
Probably like 2 weeks ago.
That's exciting. I love
Yeah,
it. I'm sure it's awesome to see it, right in front of you. All right,
yeah.
Maggie. So tell us about your writing journey and if you always wanted to be a writer or how you came up with, your writing style.
So I've been writing in journals, like writing stories in journals since I was a freaking kid. Um, like I would fill up journal after journal of pages with stories that I made up as a kid. And then, I was in creative writing in junior high and I loved it. I loved writing, but when I got to high school, something just, I lost my love of writing and I slowly started to lose my love of reading. And what brought me back was Bookstagram. So, yeah.
That's awesome. You studied your bookstagram during the pandemic, correct? In 2020?
Yeah. Yeah. So like I was so bored because, I don't know about you because I know we're both teachers, but like I was at home alone, or
Mm-hmm.
not alone, but I was at home and like I was teaching from home and I was like, I had all this time on my hands and we were quarantined for 2 months. So I was
Yeah.
like, what can I do? And so like I started looking at Instagram for books and I found out it was called Bookstagram. And I'm like, let me try this. And then it's just opened up a window of opportunities. So yeah,
Yeah. It's an amazing thing that technology allows us to do.
yeah.
So you were bookstagramming. So what made you want to write again then?
I just got inspired by writers. Like I started interviewing different authors, like indie authors mostly, and then
Mhm.
I slowly climbed up to like big ones like Sarah Pekkanen and I think that's how you say her name, and Catherine Ryan Howard, and you know, trying to think of who else is really big, some really big ones, Alka Joshi. So I started doing
Mhm.
that. And then as I heard their stories, I was really inspired, and I was like, well, maybe I could start writing again. And as a teacher, you don't have all the energy in the world. And so it took me over a year to write the book, the first book that I wrote, this book that we're talking about tonight. So, but I did it and it got finished.
That's awesome. So when you were writing your book, were you plotting it out, or did you pants? Did you fly by the seat of your pants while you were writing this?
I just wrote kind of like you and I were talking about like being a mood reader. I'm a mood writer. So like I wrote how my emotions were going with the characters. And as I was writing Jae Sung and Sloan, that's their names, as I was writing their story, I just kind of wrote what came to my heart and my mind. But I changed some things. So
Yeah, definitely. I had a good experience of being a beta reader for you.
yes, thank you.
So I was really touched by how much care you put into this with the Korean culture and really making sure that you narrowed it down, especially at the beginning, with your author's notes, and then at the end with the songs that you recommend that people listen to as they read this book. So tell us about your experience and how did that influence you to really get involved with Jae and Sloan?
So would you like me to share kind of like my experience with the Korean culture? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us how that influenced you to write and really dive into the story.
So after college, like after I graduated, I was like, I want to go to Asia and I want to teach English and I want to like be a missionary, and like work in the church, Christian church. And so like I emailed like the head office of my denomination at the time, which was Assembly of God, which I'm no longer, but that's okay. That's a whole nother story. But I emailed them and I was like, hey, I'm going to go to South Korea at this time. Like I was kind of before that time, I was kind of torn between Japan and South Korea. But I really prayed about it. And I do, I am a Christian. So like, I do believe this was from God. I had 3 dreams about South Korea and I had never been there. And so I knew like that was confirmation for me, like, you need to go to South Korea. So I emailed the head of the office and they gave me a contact and I emailed her, and it was a woman pastor that was leaving one of the biggest churches in the world. They have like over, I want to say almost 1 million people there at the church. She was going to create a church in Seoul and, for foreigners. And so I left and I kind of helped her like build that church. And in college, I did some mission trips to like Japan, Mexico, and Spain. So like I was already familiar with like church building and planting churches and stuff like that. So I went to Seoul and Monday through Friday I was a full-time English teacher. And then Saturday and Sunday I worked in the church with my pastor. Like we would go to the universities in Seoul and we would like talk to people like, about our church. And um it was a lot of hard work. I was tired, but it was worth it. I loved living and I lived in South Korea for 2 years and I just love the culture. I love the people. I love the country. And then when I was there, I don't know if you want me to answer about North Korea, how that kind of pulls in,
Mhm.
but yeah, so like I had already, as a precursor for you to know, I had already decided on Asia because in college I worked with the international student office. And so I got to know a lot of different students from all over the world. But my favorite area was Asia. And namely, I love Japan, China, and South Korea. So like I knew I was going to go somewhere there. And I was already familiar with the language by the time I got to South Korea because I had started to learn. I sat down with a friend, one of my South Korean friends, and I had started to learn the letters. So by the time I got there, I could read the words. I couldn't understand everything I was reading, but that really helped me, like, for example, on the subway, because over there, not all of the signs are in English and Korean. A lot of them are just Korean. So, like, if you can't read that quickly, for example, like if your bus is going and it's driving or your subway's going and it stops, and let's say you can't read it quickly, you might miss your stop. So like it was a really good benefit that I was able to go and I already knew some Korean. I already knew the culture a little bit. I'd already had some food a little bit. So I kind of knew a little bit about it. But when I moved there, it was a whole nother experience. Like my eyes were just open to so much more.
That's awesome. And you can really tell, I mean, as readers will see when they're reading your book, you can really tell that you did use your experiences, and you use that with care while writing the book. Yeah. You didn't like shorten coming anybody's experiences or the cultural influences. You know what I mean?
I
So,
really tried to be like, sorry, I really tried to be like sensitive
yeah.
to their culture because I'm white, and but my husband is Asian, but he always says like I'm an Asian inside. But anyway,
Oh,
like maybe I was born in the wrong country, but yeah, or in the wrong race. But I truly believe that God had a purpose for me to be in South Korea. And so like um I fulfilled my purpose there. And so I was able to like take that and it is my hope with this book that people's eyes will be opened to other cultures, but like also what's going on in North Korea. So
oh, definitely. We got the Winter Olympics coming up, the year after and in the summer. So, hopefully people will, pick back up your book even during those sportsy times, and then
yeah,
really think about what could be happening
yeah.
um, overseas. Definitely. So, how did you come up with your title then, On a Rooftop in Beijing?
So I don't want to give away too much because it'll give away a spoiler, but like
Yeah.
um well, I'm trying to think of how to put this without like giving away too much. So
Well, Maggie, did you have like many ideas going through your head when you were thinking about titles? Like, did you write them all on post-its, or like, how did you come up with it without giving away anything? Did that just stick in your head, or did you have other choices? You know what I'm saying?
this one really stuck in my head. Like I was really like, this is it. Like I didn't really have any question, and it just it kind of alludes, on a roof on top in Beijing alludes to what happens and how the characters meet. I'll just say that. But when
Yeah.
you read it, you're like, well, what happens on a rooftop in Beijing? When you read the title, you're like, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
so my hope is that with that title, people will want to like read more. They read the title and they're like, okay, well, what does that mean? What happened there?
Mhm.
Because the only way to find out is to open the book. So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And then what about your character names? Why did you choose those? Did you have others like floating around?
Okay, so there's actually not illusion. There's a reference to why Jae-sung is named Jae-sung. Sloan, I just liked her name. I was like, that's a pretty name. Like I just really liked her name. But I don't know if you want me to read some of Jae-sung's story in the
Whatever you are
beginning.
comfortable with, my friend.
Okay. So and the good thing is I did do this. I translated his name in
Mhm.
Korean at the top of the chapter. So I really liked that so that people can see the letters, the Korean letters. But yeah, so I said, my name means rule. When my parents named me, this is Jason, I think they envisioned that I would take over the world like my home country's North Korea's Supreme Leader Kim Jong Il. However, they really named me after the South Korean actor Chae Jae-sung, whom they watched illegally on a smuggled in television under the covers of a blanket with all the lights turned out at night time before I was born. Like my parents, I've always been a rebel. So um I chose that name because I wanted something powerful, first of all. Like, I wanted to allude that he was like a strong person despite everything that had happened in his country, And when we look
Mhm.
at the story, like for those of you, who are listening, like basically, I guess I'll give a little synopsis so you can understand.
Yeah.
So Sloan and Jae-sung are swimmers, and Sloan is from America and Jae-sung is from North Korea. And this book is based on the true meeting, I mean not meeting, but the true Olympics that happened like in 2008 in Beijing, because that year North Korea was allowed to participate. And so both of them are swimmers. And so I guess I'm alluding a little bit, but I had to do a lot of research because I'm not a swimmer, I'm a runner. So like
Mhm.
I had to do a lot of research. It's funny, I didn't choose running as the sport, which would have been easy for me to write about. But I do have a running character in here. But yeah, so they're both swimmers and then they meet and they fall in love, but it's like, how are they going to be together because he's from North Korea and he can't leave North Korea? Like no
Mhm.
North Korean can leave without permission. And I give a lot of information about North Korea through Jason, but I don't know where I'm going. I like kind of went off, but yeah, like I just wanted to share that he's brave. Like he's lucky to be able to go to Beijing
Yeah.
outside of North Korea, be a swimmer. He is a lucky one. He's a lucky North Korean, but that doesn't mean the conditions were easy for him still.
Yeah.
And the thing is too, like I wanted to allude that he is a rebel. Like he is not afraid. Jae Sung's not a person. He's not a character who's afraid to do the right thing
Mhm.
or to do what he feels, and thinks. See, he says, like, my parents have always been a rebel. So, like, his name alludes to that. That
I
might
love it.
be a lot.
I love it a lot. It reminds me of Milan. When Milan turned into a male, and she went and fought. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. So we all know you're a teacher, busy life, busy schedule here. So tell us about your drafting process on Maggie. Like wrote down in moods. So were there times in which you sat there and you wrote for like, hours on end, and then other days where you were like, nope, I don't want to see this for a day? Like, how did that work out for you?
Totally like that. Um, Not that I wrote for hours, but like I would make a schedule for myself that like, okay, if I sit down here, I'm going to write at least 2 chapters, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna write first I'm gonna write Sloane's and then I'm gonna write Jason's. I have to write at least that. But then there were
Mm-hmm.
times when I would sit down and it would feel so good as I was writing their story that I was like, I just gotta continue. And I would stop when I felt like, almost like when you're eating, you feel full. Like I felt full, I felt like I'm good,
Yeah.
Um, and then I would I just wrote until I felt like the story was done, But with
Mhm.
my energy level as a teacher, like I really had to think about like, do I have enough energy to sit here and write? I had to pull energy out of because it was like, it was
Yeah.
hard sometimes. Even if it was a weekend, it was like I was recuperating from the week. So I really had to be gracious on myself and just give myself time to complete this book.
Yeah. And praise for you for writing that during the pandemic too. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
realize that that was also written during that time period. So, and then,
Yeah.
you went through a lot of changes, as I know, throughout this story, which was awesome. So was there, tell us about that. Tell us about, like, do you feel like the book is where you want it to be right now? You know?
Yeah. I feel, it's funny because like people ask me like, "Oh, was there going to be a sequel?" I could see there being a sequel.
Yeah.
And I sat down to like try to write it and it just didn't feel right. I felt like it was complete, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, which was hard because there are some characters who are almost left behind,
Yeah.
at the end. But and I hope I'm not giving away too much, but like but you have to read it to find out what I mean. But yeah, like so I felt like I left some behind, but like they weren't main characters, so like that's okay. And like it kind of alludes to the fact in reality how it is
Mm-hmm.
when people do what they do. Like when Jae-sung did what he did, like that happens in real life. Um,
Yeah.
that happens to North Koreans. They have to make a decision and some people are going to be left behind, and so it's sad, but it's reality. So I think like it fit perfectly with the ending of the story.
I love that. And people will have to read or have read already to find out what was left behind.
Yeah.
Is there a happy ending in this book? Stay tuned and read the book to
Yeah.
find it. So we know that Muse Literary picked it up. Awesome job. And it is coming out on the 30th. So do you have any audiobook plans in store for this?
Um, yeah. I so far right now they asked me like if I want audiobook and I said yes. But so
Mm-hmm.
far right now it's just gonna be paperback and hardback. I did tell them that I want ebook, as well. But my problem with audiobook is like I really want someone who can get the accent down when they're
Mm-hmm.
speaking the Korean language. Otherwise it's not gonna work. And the names down and the pronunciation down. There's so many aspects. It's not like it's a white person. So like,
Yeah.
um, and I've even heard like, which is kind of disappointing, but like I had to Google one time I read a book and there was a Chinese character or maybe it was China. I don't know. It was an Asian character. I can't say which one, but like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, sorry. Now I know. It was a Korean character and
Yeah.
the word that they pronounced was mispronounced. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went and Googled them and they weren't Korean, they were Thai or something. But I'm like, here's the thing. If you're going to choose someone, in my opinion, like to read an ethnic book, like with
Mm-hmm.
accents and pronunciation, they need to be from that country, like in my opinion. So like if I was to pick someone to audio, do the audio or narrate my book for Jason from Jason's perspective, I would want a Korean, you know. And the thing
Mm-hmm.
is too with North Korea, which he's North Korean, they have a totally different accent too. So that makes it so hard because when you think about it, like you're gonna have like two different accents. South Koreans sound so different from North Koreans, so like that's hard too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but I just want it to be as authentic and sensitive, culturally sensitive as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
I really, I don't want a white person. I don't want, and like, I don't even want like, I want someone from that country, like,
Yeah.
because unless, or someone that's been there and lived there like me for a long time or studied or, is immersed in that culture. Otherwise, it's not going to be
Yeah.
culturally sound. you know?
No, and that's fair because I know you and I both listen to audiobooks all the time. And it's like if you read something, like recently I read this book, I listened to this book, and it was written by an Indian author, Maggie. And the narrators were also Indian. So they really got the accents down, and that makes or breaks the experience of an audiobook, personally for me. And I'm sure for you too, because you pointed out that, you know, experience. So definitely,
Yeah.
and that's awesome that you have that mindset, especially as a new author.
Yeah.
So you talk about your characters a lot. Who would you fan cast if you could?
So okay, like I should have pulled up this post. So I had like a picture, like I literally Googled, let me see if I can find it. We might have to come back to that question so I can find it. Maybe I can pause. Hold on. I'm gonna pause. Okay. I had to pause it because I had to find this person. So who would play Sloane? Her name is Haley Lurie. Oh no, Haley Lou Richardson. Okay. And I'll show you a
Okay.
picture of her, like her type and her body and her um just everything. Like she embodies, I don't know if you could see, but the girl with the red hair, she totally
Yeah.
embodies what I would think Sloane would be. I don't know, like here's her with blonde hair, but like with red hair, like she totally, like in this picture, let me see if I can pull it up. She
Mhm.
totally, there we go. She totally embodies who I would think would be her. And she's fit, and so like
Mhm.
as swimmers, my characters have to be fit, and so there's
Yeah.
that. And then this South Korean actor, which like that happens in South Korean dramas, like a lot of times that portrayed North Korean actors.
Mhm.
Um, a South Korean actor might play a North Korean. But his name is Jung Hae-in, and
Mhm.
damn, he's hot. He's not only hot, but like he's very fit. So like let me see if I can see. Oh, he's on Snowdrop, which is a new Korean thing. But anyway, yeah, I mean, you could see, like, look, there he is in the swimming thing. So, like,
Yep.
he would be perfect. Look at that. Yeah, he would be perfect. And taking into account too, like the body type, like usually North Koreans are shorter and they're skinnier than their South Korean
Yeah.
counterparts because they're not eating as much. So
Mhm.
a lot of them, they're not getting as much food. But the athletes, you
Yeah.
could bet that they probably, even North Korean athletes, you could bet that they probably got more food or get more food
Mhm.
than like the average North Korean because they need to be able to bulk up to do well. So, but yeah, definitely it would be Haley Lou Richardson for Sloane and Jung Hae-in for Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And if you like how those people look, you gotta read Maggie's book now. Let's go.
Yeah.
Picture those people in your head. Love it.
You know what's funny with that too, real quick, is like I went to this reader and writers conference, and
Mhm.
this other writer gave me an idea. They were like, why don't you do a Pinterest board and you pin things to go to your book? And I did that. And I think that's how I found those two actors. I was like, oh, okay, because they would be perfect for it. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Very creative. Very creative. So, what advice do you have then for aspiring authors who want to write?
Um, I would say just make time for it, because something's always going to come up. Something is always going to come up. So like, and I'm preaching to the choir here because I'm writing my second book. So like my second book, like finding time, but I'm off this week. So like, thank you. I'm off this week. So I have time, but like making time for it. Don't, it's normal to be rejected when you
Mhm.
ask publishers to like publish you. It's normal to be rejected. So like don't be discouraged by that. Like know you're going to get rejections.
Mhm.
It just means they're not the right person for you. Out of like 10, I only got 2 yeses, you
Mhm.
know? So and that's normal, I think,
Mhm.
but yeah, like, and then also like reading the contract, like when you get a contract, like definitely reading it, looking over it. And oh, I have a writer friend, and I suggest that if you are a writer, you get a writer friend because I bounce ideas off of her,
Mhm.
and you can get more ideas like that, and you can like get advice about what to do when you get a contract and things like that. So,
That's awesome. I'm glad you have her to support you.
yeah.
That's awesome.
FYI,
Um,
if you like fantasy, her name is Leslie Summers.
that's what I thought. I thought it was Leslie. Shout out to Leslie. Hopefully you're watching this.
Yeah.
What inspires you today and what are you currently reading right now?
Okay, what inspires me today? I think I'm inspired by kindness and the opposite because that's what's inspiring me to write, like um I started writing a sci-fi because I was in the store at Winn-Dixie and I thought
Mhm.
to myself, what would happen if everyone was kind to each other? Like we had no choice, we had to be kind to each other. And so I started writing that book. Um I'm really inspired by just random strangers being kind to each other recently, like the kindness that we can have towards one another. I just finished the sequel to Bird Box, Mallory, which is a thriller. It's not as good as the first one, but it's still good. Like the author's writing style is pretty awesome. Trying to think of what else. I
You
just
just finished
finished
this
that one.
the Saiyan Society, right? The Sion.
Yes, the London Seance Society by Sarah Penner.
Mhm.
It's really awesome. She includes in the back, like that's what I'm saying. Like, here's some advice to some writers. Like, definitely include like when you're writing, include some other things that your readers can latch onto. For example, like a recipe. Like in her
Mhm.
book, The London Seance Society, she includes a recipe at the end that totally goes with the theme because the theme is
Mhm.
death. And so it's like some death cupcakes or something like that. Like, and the recipes from like the 1800s from that time period. So things like that are pretty cool.
Yum. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Some death cupcakes. When a student's back for the day, I'll just eat a death cupcake in their honor. What? You didn't hear that. No, 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 no. That's awesome. And I love that. I remember I was unpacking my house a few weeks ago. Remember when you sent me those Be Kind
Uh-huh.
cards? Or yeah, so I still have some of them. And I remember meeting you. Well, yeah, when we hung out the first time in Florida, we went to Bucky's. Hope I'm
Yeah.
saying that right. But and you gave them to the cashier and stuff. So, that's definitely your theme is being
Yeah.
kind. I love it.
Oh, thank
I was like, oh
you.
my God, that's what I'm supposed to do with those cards. I was like, why did Maggie send me these cards? And they were, but no, I love it. I love it. And then my last question for you is what is next for you? I know you were talking about your second book and then you were talking about with Dixie. So what's up with that? Tell us.
Um, so my second book is and oh, before we get to that, I didn't kind of clarify why I made Jae North Korean. Can I clarify that real quick?
Yes.
Okay. So I started working with North Korean refugees when I was in South Korea because I was going to church and I ran into a guy who worked with North Korean refugees and some people who help rescue them and bring food to them and all that stuff. And so I went to my first peaceful protest, and we sat down and we listened to North Koreans share their story. Oh, I don't know why I get emotional every time I talk about it, but I do because it's just so sad. And we listened to their stories and hearing about them eating bark because there was nothing to eat and bark off the tree. Like there's no grass because everyone's eating it, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, Hearing about children turning their parents in for having a faith of any sort. And the teachers promising lollipops, and they go to school and they get their lollipops and they come home and their parents are gone,
Mhm.
and their parents are arrested and put in concentration camps and just all of that. It was very devastating. So I started sending balloons with food and all of that into North Korea. And I started doing the protests and praying. Like we would do prayer vigils for North Korea on the streets because we wanted people to see what was going on.
Yeah.
And I got interviewed by a few newspapers, local newspapers about, what we were doing. Um, And then my friend, actually at the time, he was a North Korean, his grandmother was North Korean. He was a Korean American there, living there, and he went into North Korea.
Mm.
And he brought a Bible and he was shouting in Korean, God loves you. And he got arrested and he
Oh,
was literally put in a concentration camp for like 3 years. And I want to say either Jimmy Carter or President Clinton had to go and save him
mm.
because he was trapped. But I got interviewed about that because we had a protest about that, and I was actually interviewed by CNN. It was crazy. So
Well,
if you Google my name, CNN or whatever, it'll come up with that. But my mom
cool.
was very scared. She was like, "Are you going to go into North Korea?" And I'm like, "No way, man. Like I'll stay on the south side and I will protest and bring awareness." But hearing their stories, just I will always carry it with me. Um, so I wanted to do something. And so part of this story is to give back. And I have 3 links at the beginning of my book. And the links are to different organizations that help North Koreans with food or whatever their
Mhm.
needs are. Even if they want to leave, it helps them leave. I was a little bit afraid writing this book because I was like, I hope the leaders in North Korea don't see my book because that could be
Oh.
dangerous for me. And there was a time when I was in South Korea, real quick, like when I was working,
Mhm.
where I felt very afraid. Like I would
Oh.
look over my shoulder, like because I knew there were North Korean spies in South Korea, and I wasn't being paranoid. Like I was so immersed in the activism that like I was afraid for my life sometimes. So I had to be very careful. But yeah, like how can you not be changed after hearing their stories? How can you not do anything? If you
Mhm.
don't do something, you're not human, you know?
Cool.
So yeah, so that's that. So but
That's
let's go
okay.
back. You said, what am I working on now? Let's bring it up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So let's see.
yeah. So anyway, but real quick, November 30th, if you want to get it paperback or hardback, it will be on sale. Please check my Instagram for more information. It's at Maggie Paredes author. And you can see November 30th. You can learn about Jae-sung and Sloane's story. Yay! Thanks, Ashley. Okay, so what am I writing? I have like 4 minutes, so I'll be quick. I was inspired one day at Disney. I was just walking around because I live in Orlando, and I was like, what if two people fell in love at Disney and yet one was a princess or something, so it was forbidden. And so
Mhm.
they have to find a way to be together. And I talked to Leslie and she was like, what about making one of them, what about making them an LGBTQ couple? So
Mhm.
one of my characters is bisexual and the other is gay. And it's interesting because I've been really thinking about changing the girl from Jordan, the princess, because I've never
Mhm.
been there. So like I want to be culturally like respectful. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking I might change her to Filipino because my husband's Filipino and I know that culture. So I'm thinking about doing that. But real quick, like one thing I did that I kind of was inspired to do was to Google what are the best places to hook up at Disney. So I'm including that in this book. And this book is a little bit more spicy than my first book. There is a sex scene in my first book, but it's sweeter. It's not like
Mhm.
spicy. But this one is going to be more spicy. So I look forward to seeing what happens in this couple's journey together. So
Awesome. And then really quick before you end the interview, tell us where we can find your book on November 30th.
okay, so on November 30th, this book will be available on a rooftop in Beijing, Amazon.
Mhm.
I don't know the price yet. Just get on Amazon, look it up. Amazon, Walmart, Target, my publishers, Muse Literary Chicago,
Mhm.
and that's their username on Instagram. Um, Barnes and Noble and
Mhm.
Indie, I think it's Indie Book Club or something.
Mhm.
So
Cool.
yeah, like 6 places. So go
Cool.
get it. Go get
You know
it.
I'll hit up Target. You know I'll hit up Target for you.
Yay! Well, you don't have to
Oh,
do that because I'll save one for you.
but Target's my jam. So, I'll share it with everybody else and tell them to add it to their wish list or else, you know,
Yeah.
nicely. Well,
You're
all
such a
right,
good
Maggie.
friend.
I have it in my planner. I don't know where my planner is though. All right. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And we are finally on Thanksgiving break. So
Oh, yay for you. It's awesome. You
thank
need
God.
it, girl. Relax.
Yeah. Right.
Thanks for having me
All right,
tonight.
Maggie. Bye.